So this tutorial is going to show the steps that you need to go through to create a 3D photo kind of effect. So there are a couple steps that we're going to go through. The very first thing is you choose a photo and you pull the subject and maybe some other pieces off of it by doing a selection and then copying to a new layer. Then you fill in the spots that you've left behind to create kind of a more solid background. You save that as a Photoshop document, bring it into After Effects, and then you animate all of those layers separately in different directions and different positions, and it gives it kind of a 3D look. So here's the photo that I'm going to start with here. And the first thing we need to do is select our subject. So I've done that already. You could grab maybe your quick select tool, go around, and if you need to fix things, you could do a refine edge or a quick mask or whatever, but I've got a pretty good selection here. So I'm just going to duplicate my background layer here. I've already done these steps, so I'm just gonna, I'll zoom ahead after I do this, but I've duplicated the background layer. So what I want to do is I want to get him off of that layer. So, there's a couple different ways. You can just cut and copy. You could also go to Layer, New Layer via Cut. And so that accomplishes what we wanted to do, which is put him on a new layer. Now, of course, there's a problem here because we have this massive hole left. So what we want to do is fill that hole. And a way to do that is to reselect that area, and you can do that by command clicking the thumbnail of your subject. And then we're going to go down the background copy, and we're actually going to go Edit, Fill, and instead of a color, we're going to use Content Aware. Now this may not work fantastic, but it'll give us something to work with. And so what that's doing is it's looking at the area around the image, and it's filling that space in. And you know what? I'm going to deselect by Command D here, and that did a pretty decent job. And what we can do is we can maybe just grab the spot healing brush tool, and maybe we will zoom in a little bit. Go back to that tool, and you could go around the kind of weird outline that it left and heal that up a little bit. So that looks pretty good. Or you could even grab a clone stamp tool, and with the clone stamp tool you hit Alt or Option to define your point that you're going to read from, and you just draw over that. And so that can help kind of heal those areas. So you do all that stuff, you heal that up, and you do some clone stamping, and you should be left with a decent background. It does not have to be perfect because your subject will still be covering part of that area, but do as good a job as you can. The other thing is if your photo has things kind of in the air or floating and stuff like that, like this leaf, it's going to add a lot of dimension to this 3D effect. So I'm just going to hide that, and I'll show you the layers that I ended up with here. So there we go. Those are my different layers that I'm going to use. So I ended up getting rid of the person that was standing there. And so you can see that I have all of these layers individually. And this is what we need for the next step in After Effects. So to recap there, grab your subject using any of your selection tools, remove them, put them on a new layer. New layer via Cut is a great way to do that. Fill in that background area using Content Aware, fix it up with some healing brush and some clone stamp, and then save your PSD file. So I'm going to go File. I'm just going to do a Save As. I'm going to stick it on the desktop for now. So 3D Max and Leaves as a Photoshop document, and save. I'm going to click OK. And I'm done with the Photoshop portion. So let's jump into After Effects. Here we are in After Effects. So the first thing we're going to do is go Composition, New Composition. Now, you can kind of pick whatever you want here. I'm going to go with a standard. I'm going to go with a 720p. So any of these 720s is going to give me that. So the width and height are 1280 by 720, which you could just define there. Lock aspect ratio to 16:9, and the duration is going to be 0500. Background color doesn't matter. So click OK. We now have a composition here. And what we need to do is go grab that Photoshop document that we created. So we're going to import a file, and we're going to go find that 3D and import as you could do footage, but we're going to do composition and retain layer sizes. All of these will work in certain ways and they do different things. We're just going to try this method first. So when we click open, it gives us this box. Now, do we want to merge everything or have editable layers? We want to leave it as editable layers. So click OK. And now you can see we've got a folder. And what it did was it brought in all of our layers as separate items, which is exactly what we wanted. So we've got to find the background. There it is. You can see it's named BG. I'm going to drag it down into my composition here. Now, one thing you'll notice is it's pretty massive because that photo is much bigger than our 720p canvas, but that's okay. We're going to resize everything later. So the next thing I want is Max. There he is, and we're going to drag him, make sure he's on top there. And then the next thing is we're going to grab the big leaf. Great. And, you know, we could grab the other pieces, but yeah, I'll grab right leaf. I'm just going to do that for now. Now, there's a couple ways that you can, you could grab everything and resize and do a scale for everything. And so what I'm going to do, though, is I'm just going to focus on our background and our subject first. So I'm going to hide those other ones. And I'm just going to hit S to scale, and I'm going to scale him down. So he's about that big. Great. I'm going to grab our background, I'm going to hit S, and I'm going to drag the background down. So the great thing about having these things be really big is that we have lots of resolution to work with, so we can zoom in. Okay, so the technique is very simple. Now that we have everything laid out, all we're going to do is animate the position and scale of these things a little bit. And again, subtlety is important here. It's going to look a lot better if you're subtle. That's all we're going to do, and it's going to give it kind of a 3D effect. So the first thing I'm going to do is animate my subject. So this is my timeline, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the little clock here, little stopwatch. And when I click that, that enables keyframing. So right now, it's put a little keyframe saying, okay, we're starting at 20%, and now it knows to listen to what I'm doing from now on. So I'm just going to scroll to the very end, to the 5 seconds, and I'm going to pull this up a little bit, 27. Now, I can go back and watch and see if that's subtle. That's probably kind of a lot, but over 5 seconds, it's not too bad. So maybe I'm going to bring that down to 25. Hit enter. So you can type it in or you can drag there. Now I'm going to go to my leaves, or my background layer, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to turn on my keyframing, make sure I'm at my first frame. So that sets it at 24 there. I'm going to go to the end, and I'm going to crank it up to 26. There we go. Great. Now I've turned it off on my subject by accident, so I'm going to turn it back on. I start at 25. Maybe go back down to 20. There we go. So again, you can go in and you can click and delete the ones that you don't want, and if you want to change things, but you have to make sure you're right on top of your keyframe. And I'll show you what happens if you don't. Say you goofed up there and you went to 28 here. What's going to happen is it's going to jump up to 28 and then down. So you've got to be very careful about those things, but you can just select them and delete them. So now I've got my subject and my background are both kind of growing. And what I actually want to do is maybe have my subject move slightly to the left and my background move slightly to the right. So not only scale, but position. So I'm going to select my subject. I'm going to hit P. I'm going to turn on my keyframing again. And I'm going to scroll to the end, and I'm going to move him over a little bit. So this is my X coordinate, and I've moved him over a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing for the leaves. I'm going to hit P, turns on position. I'm going to go back to my first frame, turn it on. I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to put it slightly in the other direction. All right, now when we play it back, there's just something about that kind of adds this 3D look to it. And it's going a little bit slower than real time right now. So it's a little bit better when we play it back with full res. So then you would just repeat that. Say I've got this really big leaf here. So if I hit scale, I'm going to scale it down. And I'm going to move it over here. And again, all you would do is a scale, turn on the keyframe, go to the end, scale it up a little bit, go back to the beginning, hit P for position, turn on your keyframing, go here, and I'm going to move it over that way. And that's all we need to do to add a little bit of kind of flair to this. So, you know, and I might, maybe that one might end up moving over even further. And when you layer a bunch of different layers and things kind of moving at different speeds, it gives it even more a sense of 3D. So try to take photos that have things that you can kind of animate separately. Okay, so the last thing that I would do is I would finish my composition and do a render. So composition, add to render queue, and I would choose how I was going to export it. I'm just going to leave it as lossless for now. Output to, and if you select not yet specified, it asks you where you want it to go. So I'm going to say desktop, and I'm not going to do a subfolder. That looks fine. Hit save, and then you click render. And you can see it rendering through. Once that gets to the end, it should ding if you've got your sound up. There we go. It's finished. And there we go. So it just gives a little bit of a subtle effect. I've probably animated a little bit too much there, but it's not too bad. And again, the more layers that you put in there, the better. So that's it. To recap, we took a photo, we removed the subject and some other things, we filled in the background with content aware, saved it as a Photoshop document, put it into After Effects, imported it as separate layers, layered those down in our timeline, and animated position and scale to taste, and then we exported it. And that's it.